Today we're doing the Program 5 clay project, which is based on Oldenburg's 2 cheeseburgers. And this is a really fun project, and I love when the 5th graders do this project because now they can use all of their accumulated clay knowledge from all the years that they've done clay here at EDS, and they can bring it all together to make a really fabulous finished looking food item. Here's a nice cheeseburger. Got a nice little tart. This is a peach. And I'm going to show you several techniques that you can use to build these food items. The first thing you'll want to do is choose which food item you want to make. And hopefully in your sketching time before you come here, you will have figured that out already. The first thing I want to show you is everyone's going to get a piece of clay like this. And docents, if you watch the clay basics video, I will have showed you how to cut the clay into chunks like this. You will probably need a bag and a half of clay for your 32 or 33 students that you have in the class. So just go ahead and cut up 2 full bags of clay and then mark the extra that you don't use and put it back with the rest of the clay. Just mark the outside of the bag, 20 pieces of clay cut into chunks so other docents can use the clay that you've already cut and know that it's there for them to use. So each student will get a piece of clay. This is really important. The clay that they get has been wedged so that there are no air bubbles. When you're doing this kind of construction project, it's really important to use the correct techniques to build the clay so that we don't trap air pockets. What happens when we trap air pockets inside the clay is when they're in the kiln, it creates steam inside those pockets, and if there's nowhere for that steam to escape, it causes the pieces to blow up. And while that might sound really cool, it's not, because it often takes out not just the project that blew up, but the ones that are around it in the kiln. And sometimes it can take out a whole class worth of work. So we try really hard to not make them blow up in the kiln. So there's a couple of different techniques that you can use when building your clay. And I wanted to show you some examples first. So here I have a piece of pizza that I've attached some little food items to. Here I have an ice cream cone that you could also attach a ball of ice cream to, and I think I'll demo that one. Here's an apple with a bite cut out of it, but you'll notice it's hollow, so I'm going to show you how to do that as well. And then this is similar to the tart project. This one is also hollow, and I'm going to show you how to do that. If we can make objects that are hollow, as long as they have a place for the air and steam to escape, then they won't blow up in the kiln. And they'll look nice and solid, but they'll be hollow. See, there's a little air hole right there for that one. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to do a piece of pizza or an ice cream cone. And the way I want to do that, I don't want to use all of my clay to do this. So I'm just going to use part of my clay. So I'm going to take a tool and just cut off a piece of clay. So if I'm going to make a piece of pizza, I just want to have kind of a flat slab. And I don't want to just bang it into the mat until it's super thin. I want it to be probably 1/8 of an inch thick, or maybe as thick as one of these tools. So that's a good guide. So I'm just kind of gently pounding this and kind of stretching it outward. You can see every time I pound it gets a little bit bigger. And then I'm also picking it up and flipping it over. And that's going to ensure that it's not stuck to my mat. If you just pound to your mat, it's going to be really hard to get it up off the mat when you're done. So here I have a pretty good shape. And now I can cut a piece of pizza. Now, this is probably one of the easiest things you can do. And that's fine if you want to do it. However, I would like to offer that you're now in 5th grade. So perhaps you want to push yourself a little bit harder. But I'll keep going. So here I have a piece of pizza crust. Maybe I want to put a little more crust back up on there. And you can see that I've just used some of the pieces that I've trimmed off. So in order to attach the pieces, I can't just push them on like that. I have to use the fork that you're given, and this is called scoring. I'm going to score this, which is basically roughing up the surface, and I'm going to do that on the piece that I'm attaching. I'm going to take a little bit of slip, not too much, just a little bit, and then I'm going to put the crust where I want it on here. And you can create toppings, whatever your favorite ones are. If you just want to do little rounds of pepperoni, you could just make little discs and attach them on like that. You would have to, so I'm gonna make, let's see, I'll make 3. Now for each one of these, I have to attach it. I can't just put it like this, because when it dries, it'll just come right off. So I would have to take each one and score where I want it to go with the fork. And I need to score the back of each piece. Take a little bit of slip, stick it down on there, score it. And I like to leave my fork right in the slip, so as I'm scoring it, it gets the slip on there at the same time. And I'm just going to push these down on there. And now when they dry, they have something to attach to, so they won't come off. And if you don't like the marks that are left behind, you can just take a tool, really gently. You can pull off any excess slip that you don't want, or you could take your finger and rub it. So there you have a piece of pizza. Easy, easy. The next one I want to show you is an ice cream cone. So when they're making ice cream cones in the real world, they start with a waffle. I'm sure all of you have had a waffle cone. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the piece of pizza, and I'm just sort of stretching out the clay. This one can go a little bit thinner if you like, but what I want to try and get is a round shape, which is hard sometimes when you're dealing with a rectangle. So you can see what I'm doing is I'm just kind of flipping this down, and I'm dragging one edge along the tabletop, and it just sort of stretches the clay. So I'm not going to be too concerned if it's not really a beautiful circle, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll this into a cone shape like that. Now if you want to have texture on the outside like a waffle cone does, or most ice cream cones actually, you can use any kind of a tool to just make a grid. And then again, you would just gently roll it into a cone shape. You want to keep one of the ends smaller and one of the ends more open. And you can see it just overlaps like that. So I would have to score and slip wherever it's going to attach. And this can get a little bit tricky because it's thin now. So I'm going to put a little bit more slip in there. And I'm really going to attach that down. Okay. So there you have an ice cream cone. This ice cream cone is going to have to lay down. It's not going to be able to stand up like that. So it's going to have to lay down. So now I want to make ice cream to go in there. So what you're going to want to do is just make a big ball and stick it in there. But we don't want to do that because I only have this much clay left. So I want to make it into a bigger ball. So how do I do that? I take a big chunk of clay like this. I'm just going to kind of make it into, by pushing it and just tamping it down, I'm going to make it into a ball. Okay? Then I'm going to take my thumb and I'm going to stick my thumb in it about halfway into it. So there you go, like that. Then I'm going to take my fingers and my thumb and I'm going to pinch it and turn, and I'm going to pinch it and turn, pinch and turn, pinch and turn, pinch and turn, pinch and turn. And you can see what happened is I'm opening up the inside of the clay, and I'm making this ball bigger. So I can stick this in my hand and I can take my thumb and push against the outside of the clay, and I can make this into a pretty big ball of ice cream just by gently pushing with my thumb against my fingers. And you can see, look, this is looking pretty good. Maybe it's a little bit too square, so I can just tamp it off and make it rounder. I don't want to make this too thin, but I want to make it so that it's going to fit in my ice cream cone. And you guessed it, I'm going to figure out where I attach it, and I'm going to score all the way around, and I'm going to score all the way around here because I really want this to be attached. I'm going to put slip. And I'm going to push these two pieces really gently together so that they stay. Now I have a pretty cool looking ice cream cone, and I don't even need to add an escape hole because there's one already at the bottom of the cone. So even though I attach this up here, any steam that's created will just be able to come right out the bottom. So here's my ice cream cone. It'll have to lie down on the table. So I want to try and, make sure it lies the way I want it to. If you want the fold up, it should lay with the fold up. And then I would just put my initials and room number on the bottom. So there's an ice cream cone. Now, I like the idea of using the ice cream, how I made the ice cream cone, to make any kind of round object, like an apple or a peach. And you would do the same thing. I'm starting to run out of clay, so I'm going to make a little ball. I'm going to put my thumb in it about halfway down. So this is smaller, so I'm not going to go as far, but I can start pinching and pushing that clay outward, and I can make that small ball of clay into a little cup. Now I want to do the same thing with another similar size piece. So I'm just going to kind of make that into a little ball. And then I'm going to make another little cup. I want to make these cups about the same size so that I can attach them to make a sphere. So as I'm making the second one, I want to make sure that I'm getting it about the same size. So there, I've got two cups. They're about the same size. So I'm gently gonna score the outside. And when you're scoring like this, you want to pull the fork across. You don't want to score it the long way like that. You want to pull the fork across the lip, outward, like that. And go all the way around. Then I'm going to add some slip all the way around. And then I'm going to put these two together. Now you have to kind of go around and push them together gently. Remember, it's hollow. So you're actually, at this point, you're trying to trap air in here. And the air is going to help you get a better shape. So you want to push these. That one didn't stick. And push them together. And you can gently turn it into a ball. So you push them together and you try and hide that seam. You kind of gently rub across the seam and hide that seam. And now basically you have a hollow ball that you can reshape. So I can go and turn this into more of a round shape. I could make it into a peach, or I could take, let's say an apple. I could push down and try and make those shapes like an apple has up at the top. Or maybe this is kind of looking like a tomato, so I'm going to say it's a tomato. I haven't made a tomato before, so now's a good time to do that. So this is a good tomato. So maybe since it's a tomato, I want to add some tomato leaves to it. They usually have a stem. What does a tomato leaf look like? Oh, I remember. A tomato leaf looks kind of like a star. Like that. And I could attach that down onto there and have it stick up, and now it really looks like a tomato. So if I want that to attach on there, I have to make sure that it's really attached with some slip. Now, because I've created this hollow tomato, I want to make sure that it has a spot for the air to escape. So I could either hide a hole underneath the leaf, or I could go right on the bottom where it sits on the table and just poke a hole. And I'm just going to leave that little hole right there, and all of the air will escape out of there. And so there's a nice hollow tomato. I would write my initials on here and room number. So there's 3 different ones. The last one I want to show you is cheeseburger. This is a really fun one to build. And it looks like you would just take different slabs of clay and layer them on top and put slip in between each one. And you could do that, but a better way to do that is once you've built it up like that, then you can take a tool and just gouge it out, or create each layer in the shape of a donut and then stack them up. So it still looks like a solid cheeseburger when it's flat on the table, but it's hollow inside. And that will create space for any trapped air to come out, and it will reduce the likelihood that it's going to blow up. So if you finish your project in one class period, you want to make sure that you write clearly your initials and your room number on the bottom of your piece where it sits on the table. I like to do this last. Please be sure that you can read it, that a parent can read it, and that it's very clearly marked. It's really important that we try and mark our projects like this all the time. Then you would put it on the clay shelf to dry. Once the clay projects are dry, I will put them in the kiln, and you will get them back into your class cabinet, and they will look like this. They will be bisque fired and ready to glaze. So you should watch the next video on glazing to find out about that. If you are not finished with your project in one class period, you can put your project in a plastic bag. I have these plastic bags in the orange cabinet with your name. Write the student's name on the outside, and any clay scraps that they still have, put them in the bag, tie it up, and this clay will stay nice and wet for you to come back to in 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks whenever you get back to the project. When you do come back to the project, open up the bag and take a look at the project. It might have gotten a little misshapen, so you might have to do a little bit of work to get it back to where you want it. Add details, finish it up. Make sure you write your initials and room number. Make sure they're legible on the project. Put it on the clay shelf to dry.